Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Enchanting Lawyer Podcast. This is Jacob, your host, and I'm excited to have this show again. I'm still in San Francisco this week, and I'm fortunate enough to meet so many entrepreneurs from all over the world sharing amazing stuff that they do. And today on the show we have also an amazing entrepreneur, and this time from all the way from the UK. And today we have Liz Azyan. And Liz is a social media rising star. She's a Taekwondo black belt holder and a PhD dropout who moved country and gave it all to dive deeper into the social media adventure that started everything. And we're going to learn more about what she does. When Liz isn't kicking butt and taking life-changing risks, she runs a social media agency called Digital Matchbox that helps to give hardworking and passionate entrepreneurs and businesses a voice that cuts through the online noises. She has won the Google Fellowship Award through her work helping governments embrace social media and connect with citizens online. She is also the founder of some of the following products and services: the social media management platform, Facebook ads audience targeting tool, graphic tool, lower third video graphics tool, and the social media manager's best friend. And Liz, I'm super excited to have you on the show today. How are you today?
I'm really good, thanks, Jacob. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. Like I said, I'm here in San Francisco, and just I'm embraced with the spirit of entrepreneurship. So that's why I'm happy to have you on the show. So Liz, I gave you a little background about you. Why don't you tell a little bit our audience what you do and how you got to where you are?
So, first of all, I just want to say thank you, Jacob, for having me on the show. I mean, I've been following you for some time now, and I'm a
Thank you.
big fan of your work and all the stuff you do in the social media space. So, thank you for that.
Of course.
So, just a little background about me. I started on social media purely accidentally, and it was well. Right now, I own a social media management agency and consult. I do consulting, I do coaching, and I have all those products that you mentioned. But before that, I was actually just a student here in the UK. I'm originally from Malaysia. I came here to do my masters, and then decided after my masters to continue doing my PhD, which was in about social media and government. And while I was doing my PhD, I was the original idea for my PhD was actually communicate how to engage with citizens online, which at that time I was trying to engage with a lot of government agencies, but it was really hard. This was about maybe 9 years ago. It was really hard to connect with them. They wouldn't return my calls. They wouldn't reply my emails. I was like,
Right.
how am I supposed to do any research without, research participants? So uh, finally, I met up with somebody who wasn't in government, but worked with government. And he gave me a little tip. He said, you know what, there are about 15 people that I know that work in government that are on Twitter. And he said, maybe you should try that. Maybe you can find someone to talk to because, it's an open platform. That time I did have a Twitter account, but I never used it. So
Right.
he said, here's 15 names of people you should you can connect with. So I went on there, started to try to have some engagement with them. And it went really well. I did connect with a few people, but they weren't the right people. If I they weren't the right people in the right departments that I
Mhm.
needed to talk to. So that's when I saw that everybody was actually sharing blog links in their Twitter. At that time I was also
Right.
still trying to learn how to use this thing. So I decided, okay, you know what, I'm going to start a blog and see if that's going to attract the right audience. So I started blogging about, all the stuff that I was learning with my research, all the literature review. And then I was actually, because part of online engagement at that time was social media.
Hmm.
And so I said, okay, I'm going to collect the data of which governments are using social media and just share it, share it right now and see if people are interested in that. So I practically shared my data even before, the PhD was published, just to see if I could attract them. So, and it worked. It worked really, really well, because at that time, government was like, just imagine 8, 9 years ago,
Mhm.
everyone was kind of this was like my insider knowledge. Everyone was opening up Twitter accounts, but not telling their bosses. Do you know what I
Of
mean?
course.
It was like underground and operation, and because they were scared, because this was totally something, a new way to connect, and there were a lot of risks involved. As it's government, so you have to be careful of what you say. So I was actually just telling people, oh, by the way, this say local government is using Twitter, this is doing Facebook, and this grew the confidence of those people to say, oh, and even connect with each other, to to swap best practices, and to just like say, hey, they did it, we should do it too.
Right.
So it was really exciting. So at that point, I started to kind of realize, oh my God, this social media thing is going to be the way forward. Like, you could feel the ripples happening even then. And that's when like the whole topic of my PhD changed from online engagement to like purely social media and government. And so that was kind of like how I started, and how it really worked for me, in terms of just putting myself out there
Mhm.
and getting those kind of participants, that I wanted to interview to come to me. Because what happened was, when I had the audience, everybody started following me. And mind you, at this time, my Twitter account was on private. So
Right.
everybody that wanted to follow me actually had to request to follow me before I would let them in. But I think that's the power of content. If you're sharing very powerful content and very useful content, people are willing to go through those hoops to just, get access to you. So what happened was, I one day, once I had the audience, I think it was about 1,000 by then, from 15 went to a
Mhm.
thousand. And those days that was considered quite a lot. They'd
Absolutely.
say, I just said one day, I just tweeted, I said, okay, guys, as you know, I'm a PhD researcher. Um, I'd love to connect with any of you who are, webmasters. At that time, webmasters were the ones who held the key to the social
Mhm.
media doors, whereas now it's probably marketing team or something. But those days, so I told them who I wanted to talk to, and I just literally tweeted out a doodle calendar.
Mhm.
I don't know if you know what a doodle
Yeah, of course, of
calendar.
course. We use that
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, so it's perfect, right? If you want people
Yeah.
to just put an appointment with you, you just tweet. And I got like 20 people immediately
Wow.
responding and booking those appointments. And within 2 weeks, I had finished all the interviews, that I wanted for my research. So I was like blown away. I was like, I can't believe that it was that easy,
And
you know?
Liz, I'm listening to what you're telling
Yeah,
me right now. It's interesting
yeah,
because a lot of our listeners are professionals, attorneys and people that provide service, and you essentially described in a nutshell, the content, whether it's today or before, sharing, giving away value is still the way to build your community, your audience, and people are always asking, well, how do we use this social media? How do we use that to create leads? And I tell them, you're thinking the opposite, because it's not about the leads. It's about providing value. It's being the source, and then things would happen. And I mean, you're just a remarkable example of what happened.
yeah. And you know what? I was still in shock at that time myself. I was like, I couldn't believe this was I was experiencing the power of social media. And it's just a remarkable place to be in. And so, what was really exciting about all this is, and me talking to you, is there was a point in my PhD where I had run out of funding. And as you know, Jacob, like I was on a student visa,
Right.
and so everything was kind of in jeopardy. If I didn't have enough funding, I couldn't stay and all that stuff. So I was in a pickle, and I had at that time. I had built a connection with all these people, and I just, tweeted out and said to everyone, I'm in a really tough spot. I might have to go back, to my home country if I don't get a job then could support me and like replace the funding that I that was kind of stopped, because the funding only goes how many years, and then
Right.
after that it stops. So It was amazing. After I tweeted that, people were, hundreds of retweets. People were actually, creating their own hashtag. The hashtag was Keep Liz Local. And it was
Wow.
kind of like a campaign to keep me in the country. It was just amazing. I was crying because I was so overwhelmed with the support. Everybody wanted to help me. Everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, what can we do to help? We really want you to stay." And people were like saying things like, "Liz is an amazing researcher. Anyone who hires her is going to be really, 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 happy that they did that." But the thing is, even with all that support, right? There needs to be somebody who is willing to take me on and also give me the work permit, right? It's not just about, it's not just about getting the funding. It's also about, changing from visa for a student to a visa to a work permit. So it was a really a hard situation that not just anybody could offer me a job practically. So what happened was somebody said to me, Liz, why don't you open a LinkedIn account, update it, and put your blog as a company so we could write you testimonials? And I was
Oh,
like, I did not even think, you know what? I never would have thought of that. And that's the other thing about social media, right? Solution, you put out a problem to a network that trusts you. The network will help you find a solution that you wouldn't have even thought of. So what I did was that was one person that had done asked me to do that. So I, opened my LinkedIn account. I did an updated thing and put my blog that's been followed by all these people as my company. And that one person wrote a really raving review. And what's interesting was he tweeted it, I tweeted it, and I said, "Thank you very much. This is really going to help me." And 28 other people followed within like a week to write, amazing testimonials. And that led to about 6 offers for a job. Um, uh, Three of them were really serious, like, to the point that
right.
wanted to offer me the work permits. And then finally it came down to one. And then that one was actually one of those first 15 people that actually I followed on Twitter, the first 15 people in
Wow.
government. And I was just like, I literally could not believe what was happening. And that was the point where, that's why I always like to tell people about my PhD dropout story, because social media really changed how I saw the world and how I saw my future was going to develop. And it gave me like the strength and the confidence to just say to myself, I could do anything. I could do anything that I wanted to because I had this connection to people that would allow me to literally do whatever I want, my heart's desire. So that's when I really looked at myself and I said, do I really want to be an academic? Because basically,
Hmm.
if you do a PhD, that's kind of like where you're going.
Absolutely.
And I was like sponsored by, my government to do the PhD. So if I had continued, I would have needed to go back to my country and then become a lecturer, basically at a university. That was the
Hmm.
kind of whole sponsorship deal. So I did a lot of reflection and thought, you know what? There's so much opportunity in social media, and I could literally just taste my future, if that makes sense. I could just see that where I was going with the power of social media that I have discovered, that wasn't going to be the path for me. So I decided, oh my gosh, I've already made the impact that I wanted to do with my research, because everyone, all those testimonials that they wrote to me, everybody that was in government had told me that I had made a difference in how they've carried out, their social media tasks, or how they've had the courage to jump into social media because of the work that I shared. And to me, that in itself was why I was doing the kind of research that I was doing. It wasn't because of the 3 letters that I would get at the end of my name. So I thought to myself, you know what, if that was the goal and that's what I wanted, I had already achieved it. So it's time to kind of move on. So that's when I said, you know what, I'm not going to finish it. All I needed to do was write up. I was in writing up stage for my PhD. So I was like, I could spend another year putting my head down, writing a PhD, or I could literally pick up all the opportunities, because at this point, a lot of opportunities were coming my way, and basically giving me a new life here in the UK, and
Hmm.
also, which is, one of my dreams. It was one of my dreams to always be, adventurous and go to a different country and build, some sort of new life and find my identity. And I think that social without social media, that would have never been possible. And just making that big decision to uh, quit my PhD, which also meant that I had to pay back every single cent
Right.
of the sponsorship that I took, which is huge, by the way. I could buy a house here in the UK. But you know what? Sometimes when you have profound impact on your life, and it
Hmm.
changes the way you think and changes the path that you know that you're going to take, all of that is just, it's just money. It's worth every penny. Like, I don't regret it, not a second, because of how, all the experiences I've had. I've traveled the world with just because of social media. I've been
Hmm.
paid to go to events and speak at them, and tweet at events. Like, this was like maybe 7 years ago, when people were still, you know tweeting at events was such a new thing, and everybody wanted me to go and share my all the knowledge that I get from events and blog about it. That was a career for me for like a couple of years, just traveling to events and sharing what I was learning.
And it's such
And
a remarkable story because again I'm listening to it and I'm looking
yeah,
at people who use social media and even in my own story where we use that power of connection. Social media is about connecting with people, being out there in the community and sharing knowledge and people build businesses. I mean, I built my law firm using social media. You change your life, your career because of social media, which in a sense is building connections. So I think
yes,
this is to me, and hopefully our listeners who are listening right now can get empowered, and even if they want to start doing something or they want to, become better at what they do, is it's all about being open and sharing, as opposed to trying to
yes,
get what can I get from this. It's and you're not thinking like that. You were basically sharing. You were just doing what you were genuine. You were genuine
yes,
sharing that you don't want to leave. You need help, and people like that. And I think this is just remarkable. I mean, I think that's what I get from this
yeah,
story. Inspiring. So, Liz, I wanted to get into some. I know you have a lot of. I mean, we can spend hours talking, and I know you have a lot of
yeah. I
actionable
know,
tips.
yeah,
One of the things that I
yeah,
want to talk about that I like what you shared online is turning employees into social media or any advocates. And I think
hmm,
it's important because whether you have one person working with you or 20, it's important to engage them and help you in being advocates. And I love some of the stuff that you wrote, but why don't we go dive into that? So, what are
yeah,
some of the things that I can do to enhance the company's branding or any of the other things? Let's talk about some of that and some examples.
yeah. So, I mean, I come from that place where, I always say it's better for someone else to say that you're good than you say it yourself, right? And that's almost
Right.
the core of social media, is always trying to get somebody else to say that the culture of your company is good, or you are passionate in what you do, and that's why you deliver results. And who are the best people to actually demonstrate that this is happening if it's not your employees, right?
Right.
I mean, they're the ones working with customers, and they're the ones dealing with, customers' frustrations and trying to solve them. So by getting employees to kind of also be your brand ambassadors on social media, you're virtually extending your persona, and what your company stands for, or what your company believes in, or what your company delivers. Because people always think that social media, you have to create all these kind of markety, salesy type of messages, right, to get the sale or what, and all that. But it's not true. Although sometimes that can happen, the most of the time it's all about building trust. And trust comes with like the details of what you're doing, not the big splash or the big advert you're putting out there, of what you want people to believe you to be. And employees, they're doing their work day in, day out, just by them saying, we're having a meeting, really trying to solve this problem and working on a product. And it's, talking about the process of what that's involved in
Mhm.
doing the work. Like, that is what's going to attract people with problems to find the solution, because you have to understand, people, when they're Googling for a solution, they're not Googling your company name, unless you're Virgin
Of
Atlantic or
course.
something like that,
Yeah.
right? But for small businesses, they're searching for solutions. And just a quick example, Google recently partnered up with Twitter, right?
Uh-huh.
So tweets are coming up in search engines, in Google search engines. So just by, say, your employee tweeting about, say if it's a hairdresser, a very simple example, a hairdresser, just tweeting a before and after picture of the customer that she just did a haircut, a lovely haircut for. And, somebody wants and she explains, oh, this is the hair bob type of haircut. And like me as a lady, what I usually do, right, before I go
Hmm.
to the hairdressers, I would like to Google like haircuts, and I would
Right.
say I want the bob, and then I want pictures. I want to be able to show my hairdresser this is what I want. But while I'm searching, I might actually come across, because how Google works, I might come across the local hairdresser's tweet saying, this is the before and after. And if, every people always like something that they're familiar with. And say if the customer they were dealing with had the similar haircut
Hmm.
before that was similar to mine, and then the results was exactly what I was looking for, then I'll be like, oh my God, I've got to go to that hairdresser. I have to have that same thing, because I can see the results before and after, and that's exactly what I want. And that's when you get customers that are willing to wait to get your services. Say, even if they had to wait a week before that hairdresser is available, they would wait. But if you put out like there's a 30% discount here, they might say, oh, I'm going to look for somewhere else that has 50% discount. Do you know what I mean? It's
Right.
not
Of
a
course.
long, it's not that sort of personal connection or like really attractive type of marketing. It's just kind of cost based. It's not passion based, or it's not results based. So
But
that's just like,
But when the
sorry?
employees do it, then it looks more genuine because they're actually
Exactly.
on the trenches. And I think one of the companies that I love, and I use them all the time, but I also love the story is Zappos, and I think
Oh,
the
yes.
Zappos are great at using social media and all these other tools to kind of reinforce the message that businesses are really powered by people and not by numbers or money or profits. And it's
Absolutely.
amazing. I mean, there's so many examples of what they do, and I know you've written about this in their
Yes.
book. Uh, sp- uh, I think it's spreading happiness, where it's just the whole culture of everything is about the employees, what they do,
Yes.
and I tried in my own law firm to encourage people. We don't tell people don't use Facebook. They can be on Instagram all day if they want to, and I
Yeah.
want them just to share stuff like today we had a cake at the office, or we won this case, and they use their own platforms, and I encourage it even during work days, work
Yeah.
hours, to do this. But they can take a photo of something that happened at the office, or just share a story on their network. It is probably the best way to do it because they are on in the firm. It's not a marketing scheme,
Yes, yeah, yeah. And
right?
like that's like builds trust with people as well,
Yeah,
because they know you're not trying to trick them. Do you know what I mean? They know
exactly.
you're not trying to manipulate them. This is just what's happening. And that's what culture is. Culture is what's just happening in a certain group or certain community or certain company. It's just something that we do. And when you just do something, that comes from passion. You just you do something good, you do something right, people can feel that. And you have to be genuine. There's no kind of there's no sales there. It's just, we just want you to know. Or it's not even that, actually. People just, employee just generally like to share their successes in their career, because that gives them
Hmm.
satisfaction as an employee as well. So, to be able to share that with their network, it's good for them as well, because it's showing that they're progressing in their career. And the impact on confidence and being happy at the workplace, that all that comes into play.
Right. But somebody's listening right now and they're saying, well, that's all great, but I have employees. I have, let's say, five, six people working for me. But how do we start? How do we get started with involving employees in social media efforts in this kind of outreach effort? What would you tell somebody who's asking you that?
I think sometimes, because I've actually had I've actually had the job of being that instigator for
Uh-huh.
companies. So I actually just start yourself. Like even if you go and have, like you said, you had a cake in the office, right?
Yes.
And like even if you had a birthday party and then you guys just went out to a pub or to, you had a little cake, you just take a picture, and say, oh, we're having a birthday party in the office. Start small steps, and see, because sometimes some employees don't like to be involved in their company's kind of social presence. I think we need to respect that as well.
Right.
So, I is that the whole process of starting instigating it yourself is so you can know who are going to be the champions of those people that are going to be like happy to share their experiences working in the company, and sharing all the stuff that they're doing, because we have to understand that social media is not like you can't force it, right? You
Of
can't
course.
force your employees to that. That's why whenever I go into any company, I always say, like, they would say, oh, I want everybody to use social media. I'm like, well, no, you can't do that as well, because not everybody is a social media user, like just naturally. And what you might find is if you do that, they might not know how to use it properly, and it just might seem too salesy for some reason, or all these things might happen. So you need to identify who your champions are, and then encourage them to encourage other people, because it needs to be um, natural, I would say. And it is a process, and it's also something that will it's not going to happen overnight. It is something that you need to allow to grow
Right.
and flow within your company.
And the leadership of the company, the people who run the
Oh,
company, they
yes.
have to be on board because
Yes.
I think a lot of the employees that I get emails and sometimes Facebook connection where people are working for law firms or other companies, and they say, well, we want to do it, but I don't think that our owners understand the power of
Yes.
this. So how do we convince them? So everybody has to be on board, otherwise it's not going to work,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head there. It needs to start from the top. Like you have to, if you're not doing it, it's almost like the same as blogging as well.
Right.
If like the leader doesn't blog and doesn't show his thought leadership and what he's thinking the company is or should be or is working towards, or he's not sharing his vision, it's very hard for the rest of the company to share that vision, or to also, like, sometimes they ask the employees to blog and they're like, well, I don't know what tone you want, and I don't really know what your vision is, and like there's no example of what we're trying to tell them. So, and people work great when they know, like they have an idea of what the persona that they're trying to, to show the customers.
Right.
That's the thing, right? You just need to be like Tony say. I think Tony. I don't know how to say his surname, but the Zappos CEO.
Say.
Say, you're
Yeah.
right. He's amazing. If anyone wants to know how to do it right, just go and follow Tony Say, the CEO of Zappos. He is amazing, and I mean, he is the true example. Like he's the leader that other people follow in Zappos. It's like he he exemplifies what Zappos culture is, and it
Right.
just trickles down.
Yeah, and he's very charismatic, and so so that was definitely a good example. And I constantly go and check what they do, and there's tons of information. They used to have a 3-day boot camp in Zappos where any business could go and actually experience it. I don't know if they still
Wow.
have it, but I would have loved to go through that.
Oh, I did not know that. Well, I know they do like open weekends where you can actually visit their
Yeah, but
offices
they
on
actually
the
they
weekend.
have a training. It's a whole thing. They become like a an amazing company that people can actually use it as an example. One of the few that
Yes.
actually are doing it right, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So, Liz, I
Yes.
wanted to ask you, as we come to the end of the show, why don't you? I know you've done an amazing unconference recently called Social Hack, where you bring people together to share ideas about social and business. Why don't you tell us as we end the show some of the takeaways that you've taken from that conference for small businesses to be successful this year and next and in the future using social?
So, yeah. So the social hack is all about not just social media experts to tell small businesses on how to do social media, but it was also about small businesses teaching each other because they're
Right.
at the same level. They're the best people to share experiences with each other, and the social media experts that were there were just really to kind of guide them along and give them even more tips. So the great thing that came away from that conference was the confidence level of all the businesses that were there. They actually came up to me at the end of the event and personally thanked me. It was a Sunday. This is not like a normal day where people would come out and, spend 8 hours with us. It was a free event, but we had no agenda. We didn't give them like, this is happening at 10 o'clock, this is 11 o'clock. We had no speakers. It's just literally just round table sessions, and people was just like, as people came in, we asked them questions like, "What is your biggest challenge using social media, your business?" And what happened was we just said, "Okay, is there anyone an expert or anyone wants to talk about it?" And then we assigned tables to those kind of questions and challenges, and from there, people really started to see patterns in like just knowing that someone else has the same challenge in their business. That gave them the confidence to think, you know what, this isn't just me having a problem. And that's probably like the biggest takeaway that I heard, that people said,
Hmm.
I'm not alone in this, and now I have other people within the local area, because we did it in London, that I could also connect with and have coffee maybe, and create even partnerships, that because some of them were in the same industry but they weren't necessarily competing with each other. So that was a huge thing to come out of that they're now able to work together as startups and small businesses to kind of share their audience and become a better and bigger brand that can reach a bigger audience. And as you know, with social media, it is about how many people can you reach, and how many, and small businesses tend to not want to partner up with each other, which I find really weird, because that is the power of being small, that you can move easily, right, in between spaces. So
I
why
love that.
not?
I love that.
Yeah.
This is a great tip because we all small businesses, in the service business, attorneys, accountants, professionals. Collaboration is really a key because you can't do everything yourself. Maybe somebody has
Absolutely.
a way to market one way, and you can tap that resource. I encourage collaboration with among professionals. I mean, I do that in my own community, but it's one thing that I advocate others to do because we are all in the same boat. We are trying to provide service. As long as we have the same state of mind, business will
Yes.
come our way and we'll be very successful. So I think
Yeah.
it's amazing. Liz, why don't you share verbally with the audience where they can find you, your website, your Twitter handle, whatever you want to share. So, and I'll put this, of course, in our show notes as well.
Okay, so and everybody can find me on Twitter. That's mostly where I am. And that's Liz underscore Azyan, Liz underscore Azyan, as Azyan. And my website is digital-matchbox.com. You can find all my information there. I'm going to do a revamp soon, though, because I'm releasing a bunch of new products that will help, hopefully, social media marketers and also small businesses to kind of really, really leverage social media in a really, really authentic and effective way.
Excellent.
So,
And
yes.
and again, we talked before the show. We both are Taekwondo
Yes.
practitioners, so that's huge, and I encourage everybody to try that. It's an amazing sport, and it does change the way you think. So,
Yes.
10 points for you there.
Thank you.
And even though you dropped out, I'm still gonna call you Dr. Liz. This is something,
Oh, thank
yeah,
you.
absolutely. So everybody can hear it. All these thousands of people listen to the show.
Oh,
It's Dr.
wow.
Liz. See?
Oh, thank
Perfect.
you.
Well, it was a pleasure, Liz. I really truly enjoyed it, and hopefully, if you come to the U.S., we're more than happy to have you in San Diego. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in every week. Your questions, your emails, we love to hear from you. Email me at jacob@enchantinglawyer.com, and we'll see you at our next episode coming very soon.